So we're at CNS Truck Accessories here in Corpus Christi today, and they do so many fleet vehicles. It really is amazing. All those vehicles on the other side of the fence, fleet vehicles. All these trucks right here, fleet vehicles. And it's always a big assortment of brands. Right now they have a bunch of F-150s as well as Silverados back there. Got a bunch of F-250s in here. There's a GMC right there, Ram. On the other side of the fence, it's a whole mixture of Silverados, Fords, and Rams. They do just about every conceivable upgrade to a truck here, and people bring their trucks from all over the country to get them worked on here. They do just about everything from put flatbeds on that they have way back there to do spray and bed liners over here. So as I was walking by this Ranting Horizon Series front bumper that goes on a 2017 Plus Super Duty, I was asking Robbie what the deal with it is. And he told me that a subscriber on my channel called from Louisiana, dropped his truck off, flew back to Louisiana to get all this stuff done to it. So the owner of this one's doing the same thing to this as the other one that I showed in my video, with the side pockets cut out for LED lights as well as the receiver hitch, but in his case he has a grade 8 bolt coming through the bottom of it to help stabilize the hitch. That's a really smart idea. And he also has the LED light mount that's going to be going on this one as well. And because this thing's completely sanded down, it's being prepped for paint. So I don't know what color it's going to be painted, but it looks really good. So today we're working on this Ford F-250. This is a really nice truck, and I actually know the owner of this truck. We're going to be taking off the Extang solid fold cover that he has, and we're going to be putting on the new Access LOMAX cover. And this is a LOMAX Pro Series. So if you've never seen this bed cover and you've had one of those tri-fold covers, you're really in for a treat on this one. Those bed covers are probably the best bed cover you can put on a truck. They are incredibly low profile, and they are super robust, and they have a really nice finish to them, and they're made out of aluminum. From the owner of CNS himself, he says they're the very best bed covers he has ever seen. So we're going to follow along today, the installation of that bed cover, and we're also going to be putting a rack on this truck. So it's getting an access rack. It's called the ADARAC, and it's also going to give him the ability to haul around kayaks or canoe or whatever he wants in an elevated position without taking up space in his bed, because he does haul around an RV with this truck, or at least a travel trailer, and having extra room in the bed is always important, especially if you're going on an extended camping trip or something like that. So here is the old bed cover that we're taking off. This is the Extang solid fold cover. It's not a bad cover. The problem with it is the panels are pretty thick and they elevate above the bed of the truck. Plus, it's pretty easy to break into because the way you secure it shut requires these little spring tension clips that basically loop underneath the sides of the bed rails, and they're not that difficult to break or to dislodge. So the cover that we're going to be putting on is definitely going to be a step up from the Extang solid fold. This isn't a bad cover though. It's just not nearly as nice as the LOMAX Pro that'll be going on the truck. The ADARAC is down here in this box, and it's made out of all aluminum. So guys, if you ever take on a project like this, one of the key things to remember is to make sure you unpack all your hardware, count all your parts, make sure everything's there. I don't know how many times I personally have received something in the mail and it's missing one bolt that holds the entire project up. And the last thing you want to do is get really neck deep in your project just to find out that that critical piece is missing and you have to remove the whole thing, or you have to try to make something from Lowe's or whatever to fix the problem. And that's exactly what Robbie's doing here today, is he's just making sure all the parts are included and everything is going to be ready for installation. Don't let me bother you while you're doing this, but I'm going to ask you a quick question, Robbie. I talked to your dad, probably a couple months ago, about the LOMAX cover. Okay. And he told me it is the very best cover he has ever seen. Now, I know there are a lot of covers out there. There's roll-up covers. There's this Extang solid fold that was removed from the truck. But what, in your opinion, makes the LOMAX cover such a good cover?
Well, it's always situational. On the LOMAX cover itself, the cover actually removed from the truck of the bed without having to take any nuts and bolts off. So if you actually need to remove it, It's about 4 string pulls. You undo 2 carabiners on either side just to hold the cover down and keep it from flying off, I guess. But everything on the cover is...
Yeah, it just kind of snaps into place, right?
Yeah.
So with the Extang, you have to release a bunch of retainer clips that are mounted underneath, and it basically screws itself to the underside of the bed rail right here to remove it. And that can kind of make it difficult because you got to reach really far underneath there into the channels to get that done. With this LOMAX, it's all these little pull handles that release clips, and then the whole thing just comes out. And that's really nice.
The installation and up and so.
Plus, it's a really low profile bed cover too. And this is the new LOMAX Pro series, which is supposed to be even more robust than the standard LOMAX series. So I'm going to be really interested to see what it looks like on the back of this F250. So the first step is to take this little nylon cable they include, and you're going to feed it through these plates. So you get essentially this bottom plate with the thread pointed towards the bottom of the string where it leaps through, and these 2 additional aluminum spacers that go on board. So essentially it's going to look like this. So the way these work is you drop the plate into your pocket stakes here, and then these 2 additional aluminum plates act as spacers across the top. So once the rail goes across the top of this, it's perfectly flush and it's not putting excessive force around the edge. So they're in the process of putting the rails on the sides. These are the rails that are going to hold up the upright supports for the rack. So Robbie is in the process of installing the retainer plates. You're going to have enough to put 3 spacers plus the plate on all 4 corners of this. Then he's simply inserting the bolt through the hole right here. Goes through the 3 spacer plates into the retainer plate. There's no way to get access inside of here, so you have to use this little string mechanism that LOMAX includes, which basically pulls the whole assembly plate up and holds it from the bottom. It's actually pretty ingenious and convenient if you think about it.
Okay, I thought it was.
Moving on to the front driver's side. And Robbie's installing the bolt. It's a pretty convenient setup. That's one thing I've noticed about pretty much all of Access and LOMAX and AgriCover. The way that they do it is pretty simple. So the instructions say you can simply cut these off and remove them once you have the plates in place, but I wouldn't recommend that, and they don't recommend that here, simply because if you ever want to remove this rack, you won't have any way of holding on to these plates and keeping them from falling in. So instead what they do is they route them underneath, and they simply route them down the length of the bed rail here underneath this piece of aluminum channel.
Going right to the center of the rail right there. And we're good. Stand tight.
One thing to remember when you're mounting these channels is to make sure your spacing from the end of the bed is the same on each side. So they measured it 1/2 inch off the end of the bed on both sides. So these are the retaining nuts that go inside the channel here, and Robbie slid 2 of them on each corner. So these will be what hold the uprights for the crossbar. And it's a pretty convenient way of doing it. So I know with some of the setups you're going to have holes and you have to put nuts and bolts through it, but in this case you have these slidable channels, which means you'd be able to reposition the rack mount or the crossbars really up and down these channels at whatever interval you want. That's a pretty cool setup. So that's pretty interesting. It appears that they wrap the upright supports for the rack in a very similar vinyl that they use on their soft bed covers. That is a pretty good way to protect them. So here is one of the uprights. Thing weighs almost nothing, but it looks like it's 1/8 of an inch thick aluminum. They include the plastic cover that pretty much comes on any type of aluminum panels when you buy it, but it's really nice because it keeps it really well protected. And then they wrap this entire assembly in the same vinyl that's used on a bed cover. Really, it's, I think, overkill. They also had plastic saran wrap around these things as well. So this part's pretty simple. Just has to find the retainer clips, which I could probably see a little better from this side. One thing to note, if he wants these rails to move forward, he just simply takes this one off, moves this piece on the other side of this anchoring bolt, and then you can slide them anywhere up and down this channel that you want. They include these little plastic end caps for the channels. Then they include little Phillips head screws to secure the end caps in place into the channel. So with all the Ford trucks that I see out here, and I'm saying that they do a big diversity of Ford, Chevy, and Ram, Robbie, what truck do you prefer?
I prefer the Ram.
You prefer the Ram?
Yes, sir.
A Cummins Ram or a Hemi Ram?
Actually, I have an Eco Diesel.
Oh, you have the Eco Diesel?
Yeah.
How do you like that?
I got it back in 14, and you know, besides a sensor problem from the get-go, I haven't had any problems with it. I mean, they just replaced the sensor in the DEF unit, and just been running. I mean, I don't have problems. I get an oil change. Don't have issues.
So your brother has a F-250. Yep. Is he a Ford guy?
He's a Ford guy.
And your dad has a Silverado.
Yep.
Is he a Chevy guy or is he a Ram guy? Because I know he had a Ram.
He was a Ram guy, then he got a Chevy. I don't know. I made him be a Chevy guy, but I think it's that independent front suspension. It's an old man truck, is what it is.
Oh, okay. Your dad's definitely not a Ford guy, though, I've realized.
No. We've got too many service and work trucks that come in here that are Fords, and so it's one of those turnoffs. Being in this industry, you see a lot of service trucks that are Fords. Everybody's driving a Ford, and so if you want to be that guy that's driving a Ford, you can be that guy. But my brother goes by it because, I mean, yeah, it's a workhorse. The Chevrolet, I feel like with the independent front suspension and that BDS 3-inch kit, it rides really nice. It rides like a 1500.
Really?
Yeah.
So you saw the launch of the new Silverado and the new Ram. Which one do you like better?
Honestly, I couldn't give heads and tails until I actually see the truck, you know.
They both kind of look like Toyota Tundras now, don't they?
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I guess Toyota either did it right from an aerodynamic standpoint or a looks, because the whole side profile of the Silverado looks like a Tundra, whereas kind of the front profile of the Ram looks like a Tundra.
Yep.
So everyone's kind of copying the Tundra now.
I think it's the aerodynamics. I mean, they had it right when they did the Tundra as far as the aerodynamics goes. But I just couldn't handle the interior on the thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, if they got rid of that big screen and the big buttons, I'd be all over it. But it just feels cheap in there.
What do you think of that 12-inch screen in the Ram?
I like the 12-inch screen. I'm interested to see how it comes out.
Me too. What would you say, what's the dirt you got on the dad?
I'd honestly have to say that those Fat Boy bumpers, they're palm tree tested.
Palm tree tested?
Yeah.
There's a long story behind that, and I've heard this story.
Those Fat Boy bumpers, right? Those are palm tree tested?
Palm tree tested.
How do they hold up to palm trees?
They hold up just fine. 15 miles an hour, drive the stack them on all the way into it, never move the bumper.
I came into the shop one day, and I see my dad has his truck on the list. He's never working on his truck. He always has someone else working on it for him. But he's actually under there loosening bolts and stuff. I'm like, Dad, what happened? He's like, well, don't you see the bumpers bent a little? I'm like, well, how'd the bumper bend a little? He said, they met a palm tree last night and they didn't like each other.
So what Robbie's doing now is he's inserting these little nut plates into the cross members here. And they simply slide into this groove here, go underneath, and then you put 2 bolts right underneath to hold them in place. Gives you the ability to actually move and articulate the channel slightly if you need to. Installing the rear crossbar. You got to admit, though, the step on the tailgate on the Ford was a brilliant idea.
That was a great idea.
I know people give it so much crap all the time if they don't have it or if they just don't like Ford, but quite frankly, these trucks sit so high off the ground. This truck is over 4 feet off the ground, and to hop into the tailgate of this truck is a bit of a chore, especially if you're loading anything in here.
Yep.
just aligning it on both sides, and again, because of the way it's designed, you have the flexibility of rotating it. So probably the single most difficult part of this install is kind of a trivial one. It's feeding that rubber protection strip or stabilizer strip into this channel across the top. Robbie just applied some lithium grease on here just to add a little bit of lubrication. Hopefully it will work with the channel well and we won't have much of a problem.
Give it a massage.
So the key here is you have to get the wider side of the trim in first and then kind of pull it into place, and then the other side will snap in. But installing this rubber piece across the top is definitely the most labor intensive portion of this install and the most time consuming. Once you trim the overhang down, you just have to put these little caps on the end. So that's it. So Robbie is just making sure that all the bolts are torqued down to the proper specifications. The rack looks really, really nice on this truck. It gives it a really nice overland appearance. I mean, it really looks good. And each one of these uprights can support 250 pounds, so you have 500 pounds total capacity with this rack system, which should be more than enough for canoe, kayaks, fishing rods, ladders, anything you might want to put on there, including some lumber. And this is the ADARAC Aluminum Pro Series. So here is the LOMAX Pro that'll be going on next. This is their tri-fold hardtop professional series aluminum bed cover. So identical to my Access bed cover with the mounts, they use these aluminum clamps that you essentially put on the rail and it clamps it to the side of your bed. They work really well and they actually hold really tight. So another reason why this is a good upgrade over the Xtang is the clamps that the Xtang use pull out on your side bed rails. They loop underneath, and then as you tighten them, they put pressure and pull out here. So the LOMAX isn't going to do that at all. It actually gives you a new rail that goes across here, and there's no pressure on these rails at all.
Basically, you'll push it all the way up against here. Put it down to the low setting so that when you tighten it, it's not going to strip that bolt.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah.
And of course, guys, you want to make the top of this rail pretty much even with the side of the bed as well. Total of 10 clamps. 5 on each side, 2 for the front sides and 3 for the back sides.
And just like that, goes in.
Yep, just snaps into place. There's a couple clips here on the bottom that hold on to the side clip. Now he's going to disconnect these little connectors right here at the end, which hold it down when you're not using it or when it's rolled up. Unfolding the panels.
Like you see right here, they've got a hook that actually hooks right into the rail right there, unlike the back flip and some other covers. It doesn't clamp into the rail where you have to pull the string every time. This one just hooks in automatically.
Oh, so it's more convenient.
And that's it.
Man, that is nice looking, guys. That only sits above the side of the bed rail by about a ½ inch. In conjunction with the rack, it looks really good. I wish I could use it on my truck, but because I haul a fifth wheel, it won't work. Looks like it seals up real well too.
It's supposed to be one of the more waterproof covers on the market, but the way that they have the seal that goes all the way up around the edge of the cover. There are no drain plugs to this cover, no drilling any holes in the bed. Probably one of the lowest profile covers there is. And from reviews of what customers have told me, they don't get a lot of water in the beds.
Wow, that is awesome, man. Hey guys, I got to give a big shout out to my friends here at CNS for doing another phenomenal job on this specific truck. Man, that cover looks amazing. It really does. It's hard to explain how good this diamond finish looks with this rack on the back of the truck. I'm usually not a big fan of utility racks, but this thing looks amazing, and it looks more like a sports series type rack, as if you're kind of an outdoor enthusiast and you really want to put, you know, kayaks, canoes, things like that on top of it. Anyways, guys, if you haven't had a chance, please subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up. I'll put the information for this entire setup in the description of the video, as well as the information if you want to get in touch with CNS. And we will talk to you guys soon.